I gotta go check something real quick. We're having like a thunderstorm here, and I just heard something sound like it fell over.
Oh, go check it.
So
Yeah, go do that.
I'll be right back.
Holy God, dude!
Dude, that's 10 subs. Jeez.
He's done it 3 times now. This is the 3rd time.
Oh my gosh.
Tonight?
Yeah, this is the 3rd time he's put subs in, man. Jesus
Well,
Christ.
the first one is him resubbing.
Yeah.
The next 2 times was him giving 5 subs each, so wow.
I know, but I'm talking about each time. It hits for me. It's not the amount per se, it's just the fact that it happens.
That's true.
Yeah. Crazy.
Hype train is close. Yikes. Okay, I'll be right back.
Alrighty. And of course I transition over and all of a sudden it is...
Hype train!
Does this help? I think that literally made it slower. Oh, good lord.
This is what you get for being late, I guess.
Yeah, but I'll endeavor to be late more often.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, no. I am so grossly out of sync. The only way to fix that too is to like completely turn off like OBS and turn it back on again.
Turn off, just turn off the connection and then reconnect it instead of turning off OBS. Like if you
I don't know how you do
element,
that.
put it back.
No, I mean I can make it. I would have to remake it in order to do what you're talking about.
Is that hard?
It would take me 5 to 10 minutes.
Oh wow, it takes a while.
Well, yeah, because I'd have to frame it, put it in the other frame, complete the other, like slap it all together to make it work. We've been there for almost an hour. Where's the refund?
He was chilling out in the chat like really.
Yeah. I guess I could restart my camera. There is that.
Try it out. Yeah.
Change
Just turn it
modes.
off, turn it back on.
Camera. Does it have the ability? I don't know how to turn my camera off. Maybe I could do it inside of Skype. Because my camera doesn't have like a...
Try it out.
At least I know what to pick for music, right? Everybody keeps calm. It's all chilled out. Yeah, I can only switch to my virtual camera. It doesn't give me the option to turn it off. Okay, here we go. See if that does it.
Okay, you just.
Oh my god, that actually looks kind of halfway cool.
Whoa, the little S.
Yeah. And
Okay, I'm back.
Welcome back.
My shed was. the
oh no,
door
I'm like
came open.
still the same. I have to restart OBS.
Are we restarting?
No, I hope not. We're just grossly out of sync, or at least I am.
I don't know if I am. Let's see.
Yes, you are.
Sure enough.
Yeah. I restarted it right after everything was set up anyways, and it still did the thing.
Yeah, one of these days I'm gonna like spend some time and like I'm gonna come over to your house and we're gonna do some troubleshooting. Like, there's got to be a way to fix it because everywhere else it doesn't have this problem. I know it's a problem, but just, yeah, we gotta spend some time on it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Either way, we're here. We're
Yeah.
looking good. How's the weathering going over there, Scott?
It's wet and wild. We're getting that nice atmospheric river, so it's gonna be like a week of pounding rain and wind.
Right. Well,
We have a shed right outside the window here, and I just heard like crashing, and the door was flying open, so I flipped it around and wedged it in place.
Good. Hopefully nothing gets damaged.
No. Oh, what? We have a hype train going.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
It's been pretty
Right as you
awesome.
left, the hype train started because of Shady and because of GameCat. GameCat with the 1 bit. And of course, Mouth with the 100.
That's interesting, Short. How did you even manage that? I don't even know what you mean by that, per se.
Outside programs controlling the camera. Oh, interesting.
Because there's not really anything underneath here or there. Was it underneath
Pretty sure
advanced?
GameCat, everything is coming through OBS right now. Hype train success.
Yeah! For such a chill stream on top of it, too. I might try this. Okay, this is going to be very interesting. Let me see what happens whenever I do this. I'm going to switch to my virtual camera, which means that every one of you guys is going to disappear for a second, and then we're going to be right back. But it's going to be me. So, let me try this. Switch directory. What the hell? And
Interesting.
and I'm in sync.
You fixed it.
I fixed it in the way. I have a Band-Aid workaround. This'll do.
Hey, you know what? Band-Aid workarounds are the way to go. Especially when we're doing it live.
Yep.
Nice.
I'll take it. Yeah, everybody's back up to sync. Now it doesn't creep me out because I hate that whenever I'm talking and then I see my movement to the left of my face and it's me after I was like, I'll do something crazy and then I'm like, oh, what's that? Because it happens after I say it.
Oh, look. GameCat is the hype train conductor. Congratulations.
Oh. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, that did the trick. Well worth it. I might just have like a blank scene selection that I can flip back and forth at least until further notice.
Is Shady? Oh, he is, yeah. We got 2 hype train conductors.
He is the real Shady. Another 100 bits. Holy shit. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, we're not going to talk about anything important. We're just going to talk about the fact that we're just getting bits and money.
Dude, there's some streamers that literally they just chat. Like, that's the thing. They just chat with chat. And
Yeah.
people just throwing money at them. Just throwing it at them. In
Yeah.
their face.
I know. Someday. So,
Oh, top bit gifter and sub gifter. Okay.
so
So Bill is out tonight.
yeah. I was going to just say, it's like,
Uh,
briefly, it is a Fiction Factory episode, so it means that we're going to be doing the nitty-gritty, all that other junk with Synergy System and the rest of it. Hence the interesting YouTube video running in the background. So, but it's just nice and chill so that we can actually just talk and do what we're going to do, because we've been doing a lot of planning lately, especially today. Between trying to measure out the link, how it's sort of relatable to how magic works. There's been that, and I've been thinking about a lot of different stuff. Like, what's popping up in my head is where I want potions and charms to be in Night City, because I want those things.
yeah.
There's potions you drink, there's potions you throw. Because who doesn't want exploding potions? I want exploding potions.
Okay, I'll have to figure out that in bed later.
So in the pre-show prep, we were talking about how we haven't really addressed how magic works in this game, like the newer system of magic. And then as Ken was saying about today we just like brain dumped each other on the link. But I think magic would be a good place to start, because we're seeing Danny, my character is doing some magic under this newer system. So, why don't you kind of explain your vision for the magic system, because I think it is unique.
So, yeah, magic, the idea in and of itself was stolen from White Wolf's mage originally, because I like the idea of being able to make up whatever you want based on, you know, the permissiveness of your GM, you know, withstanding as, you know, establishing what the rules are in order to do it and setting that difficulty and, you know, being wise to, you know, what is it going to take to do these sorts of things. There's two ways that I'm seeing it if I want it to work correctly. One is having it set to where, being the most complex part of any tabletop role-playing game, I want it to be simple. But I also do not want it to be a standard conformist style magic system like we see everywhere else. I mean, D&D really kind of started it.
Yeah, can you, just for the layman's like myself, can you
You're not a
describe
freaking
what
layman. You don't get to hold that
standard-
title anymore. This is third year tabletop role-playing game. You are
Just one
officially
game,
in.
What,
And-
what I'm trying to ask here is for the folks that have never played D&D.
Oh, I understand.
What is the bog standard magic system that we're trying to break away from?
Yeah.
Fancy and magic.
So the way that D&D does their stuff, the way that D&D does their stuff is that they had a few ideas in their head about how it was all to work together. They would create a spell, and they would follow certain rules, and it was beholden to power of the spell was beholden to the level that you could cast it within. Originally, you couldn't move these things around too much. Nowadays, they've changed it to where you can scale it up and down. So if you had a first level spell, you could scale it up to more powerful levels if you wanted to. But the things that kind of remained the same were it had components, meaning you had to wave your arms or say something or have something physical that you would either channel it through or consume in order for it to work. And then each spell was sort of long and drawn out, depending, especially at the higher levels. They just get big, fat.
A lot of conditions.
Yeah, a lot of conditions, a lot of description,
There's
a lot of
called Wish.
Yes,
where you can
there
just
is.
make
There's
some
limited and
nice
unlimited wishes too. That's the thing, is it's separated.
And you would have spell slots.
Yeah.
So you could cast a big spell once per day, and then you'd have to rest or whatever.
Cats.
So you would, like, no matter how. Oh, and you would have to learn your spells every day.
Yeah. That was another
If you're a
that was another
wizard.
big deal, is that you had to, it's like you forgot them the next day.
Yeah.
So you could only have a certain number of charges basically. There were a lot of things to try and balance out what Magic did. The way that it was approached was, we have these really cool things you can do, but you can't do them too much or it's going to make people sad. So they just kind of kept that as the original mechanic to it, right? So it's been developed, and it's kind of the same way now, with key things being that you can scale it up and down. The way you do it is you don't have to constantly rehearse that. You still have to, like, go through and prepare and practice and stuff, but it's easier. It's not nearly such a knockdown, drag out kind of process in order to keep your spells up. So
But
that
if you
was,
didn't prep a spell today.
yeah, it's
if
not
you-
in your
if
arsenal.
You thought you would need Fireball today instead of, Melf's magic minute meteors, and you
Right.
get into a situation where you need those minute meteors. Too bad. You didn't study that, so you don't have it.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is that because of the fact that it was so hyper conditional, it makes it really hard to feel like you're doing like anything. It's tools, and when you try to make something do something unique, you have to play in conformity with the system in and of itself. So in other words, you're in juxtaposition to the system to try and do something interesting. Fucking cats.
I saw the tail.
Yeah. Hold on one second here. I'm gonna see if I can't relieve the felines.
But yeah, so basically, what happens in D&D and many other systems is you have some sort of spell currency, mana or spell slots or something like that, and that is your big limiter on what casting you can do. And it gets frustrating because you could be out of mana. You could be a wizard. That's a classic.
Well, it's as far as I've seen, it's the basic thing of like stamina, right? Mana is just your magic stamina. Like a fighter can't swing their arm all day to
But they
attack.
can in D&D.
Yeah, they can.
oh,
They literally can.
That's the
There's
thing,
no there's no measurement for that part
there's
of it.
no you could be a wizard and blow your load in the first fight, and then be like, I can't do anything except stab you with my dagger or fling a staff or whatever, like for the rest of the day until I've slept and studied and all that stuff. So
okay, now that we have a baseline for D&D, which is structured, has a lot of restrictions in place and a lot of prerequisites. It sounds like you have to learn formulas and you have to have a lot of prep. How's Shadow's magic system?
Magic?
I
Well,
interrupted you
this
as
is...
getting into your stream, but so here now you go in. We have context.
Well, so the thing about this being is that the way that... Okay, so this is the same exact MO for the entire system. It's not, we want you to do badass things, but let's limit how much you can do. It's more of a, you can do these things, let's see how far it goes. We're promoting how badass you can get to where you're going, as opposed to saying no, we're saying yes, but let's work your way there. So if you get to being the really high level power gaming stuff, you can start that way if you want to have like one-hitter quitters, or if I don't know if the GM has something crazy up their sleeve that they want to work with. You can do something where it's an Avengers level threat constantly and have that happening. That'd be fine. There's a universe out there. There's always something that we could fight, battle, do whatever. The stories are endless, but we're not trying to balance the system by restricting it. We're trying to balance it by basically suffusing the system with so much cool stuff that even a magic user with all of his cool tomfoolery can do that, but still have competition for what's going on, because there's just other just as interesting things happening. Mechanically, the way it works is that we basically say, here are a set of spells that everybody knows. And they're easier to cast because they've been practiced. They've been done over and over and over and over and over in mass. Those are common spells. This takes a place similar to what D&D did with theirs, but they're not going to be
cantrips.
huge. Yeah, it's not going to be huge block text for like each everything. And I will be putting like more powerful spells in there, but it's still along the lines of, hey, we have a template. This is what you can do if you ever use a common spell. It makes it easier to work with because you know it. You've been over it. The practice has been there. There's a refinement to it. And you can even make your own spells that you just come up with on your own. You can make those common to yourself. They can be added to the overall, world grimoire of a sort. But the premise behind it is this. You have your common spells, which are what people usually know. They're mostly utilitarian. A lot of them, there are a few of them that have, combat specific focus. But they give you the template. So if you don't want to think about what you've got going on, you can just use one of the common ones. There you go. But there's not going to be so many of them that you won't want to just sit there and try and figure it out yourself. And that's the biggest part, is that where D&D tries to push magic into several different boxes all at once with the various schools that separate what kind of magic you can do, plus the fact that you only have the certain levels, plus that it only does certain things under certain conditions, on and on. It gets so granular about how, where, when you can do these things. The magic system in this case doesn't limit it that way. What happens is like, I want this particular effect to occur, and the GM goes like, okay, it's going to be pretty much this hard. The GM gets to set an in-context balance on the fly. They get to say, it's like, well, that'd be pretty nutty that you're trying to do this. Here's what the difficulty is going to be. And even if the player complains about it, it's like, that's what I'm saying. That's what it is. You're going to have to try and beat that in order to accomplish this. It's not no. It's just, you better do really damn good. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's not complicated. So you're not having to overload your sheet. You just get to roll where it works. And if it's something that you really like doing or it's super effective, then you can just write it down in your own grimoire and make common, reducing its overall difficulty and pushing it down. So the idea is to have creativity mixed with structure, and that promotes going forward and doing cool things, as opposed to doing cool things and let's wind it back. Yeah, it's super awesome. I love the fact that we have those sheets up and running right now.
So we have three different
No
disciplines.
micromanagement.
Right? We have three different disciplines
Yeah.
in the game of evocation, which is your quick and dirty combat magic, essentially. And you described this in past with like short form magic,
Yeah.
right?
Short,
This is
balanced,
the
long. Yeah.
kind of like shoot from the hip type magic, lightweight magic. So this does include, something like a fireball, but it also is, a quick heal of something, or let's fuse these two objects together, stuff like that.
Yeah. It has a lot of different uses. Now, I want to make sure that I'm really clear on this part of it. So the disciplines originally had their own die pools. I've had that problem too many times. So the way that this works is that evocation is the baseline. So the foundation of all magic in Shadows or in the Synergy system really is in the evocation space. What happens is that you go from evocation, which is on the fly, I know what I'm going to do, here's the effect. The parameter for it is if you have a sustained effect, it takes concentration, which means that if you're going to cast more magic on top, you're losing 1 dice to compensate for your concentration. So in order to keep a spell effect going and just rolling around, you can decide how long it is. Unless you go unconscious or stop concentrating, that effect just goes until you're done.
Danny's rank 3 evocation, right? My character is a rank 3 evocation.
Right.
I roll 3 d10s.
Yep.
If I have to concentrate one of those is over here doing concentration, then my max is 2.
Right.
That I can play with for any other spells.
Yeah, at most, if he were going to be able to successfully do anything, he could have 3 spells running simultaneously.
Yeah.
Right? So that he's the one who's supplying the form and the power for those things to remain as they are. The idea of what happens next is there are 2 different forms. They kind of go in from evocation, which is the snappy, fast, in your face, here it is, holding onto it until I don't need it anymore type of magic. And then you have the ritualized forms of magic, which go right above that. First one being enchantment, meaning you get semi-permanent effects where you're not holding concentration, you just get to hold something for a little while, and that charge remains for a period of time up to like 2-3 weeks. And then you have to kind of either reset it or recharge it if you use it. Mechanically, it does not, like I said, originally it had like the dice rolling thing where it's like your rank would dictate how many dice you rolled. What I've done is I've made sure that it does something slightly different. The evocation is always the baseline. When you roll, you're casting the spell. That's what evocation does. That's like kind of like pulling the trigger on a gun. That's always the element that you're going to need. What enchantment will do is that when you're doing ritualized magic, is that you can ignore when you're doing those rituals because it takes longer die rolls and usually you have to go extended.
You're more careful.
Yeah, you have to be more careful. It usually takes more time and it's a lot more engrossing than just doing your regular evocation. Each rank in your enchantment nullifies 1 exhaustion while you're rolling it along. So it doesn't matter if you're doing an extended roll and you had a rank 3, that would mean you ignore the penalty for extended rolls when you're doing that. And, so if you get like a rank 10 enchantment, that means that you can literally suffer a huge amount of exhaustion without stopping. You can just go. You're a hyper endurance machine. And then alchemy is the longest form of magic there is, where you get to create truly permanent objects, be it artifacts like magical swords, magical knives, magical walkie-talkies, I don't know. Whatever it is that you want to throw yourself at, you can do crazy things, and it's where your creation can go, but it's a permanently magical item at this point. Meaning that in order for somebody to disenchant it at that level, they have to meet the same number of successes on a, more or less a dissembling spell to cause it to go away, which alchemy pushes really high. The number of successes that you're going to need is insane. It's like 10 plus to make something permanent, which is almost impossible, which is why when you start getting alchemy levels, that gives you the +1 automatic success per rank to do a specific alchemical work. And that's important because that just gives you a little bit closer to the finish line when you're doing those things. Because like I said, 10 is the lowest. So you have to imagine that anything that requires 10 successes is impossible, even with 10 D10, you're still going to run into trouble. So it's automatically an extended roll, and which means you need to have a high level of enchantment to cut off all that extra exhaustion so you don't kill yourself in the process. And then you need to have a decent rank in alchemy so that you have enough automatic successes to shorten down how much distance you need to go in order to succeed at what you're doing. And that's how those disciplines work. They allow you to go, I really want to have a rubber ducky that has super laser eyes that I keep and play in my bathtub. Sure, you want to make that permanent? Fine. You can go through the alchemical process to make that happen. You're just going to need to make sure you've actually got the ability to do it. If you want to make it a charm where you basically can only do that once, that's easier, but you still need to have some degree of comprehension as to what you're doing. And each one of those disciplines has their own part to play. So, but each and every time you cast any magic whatsoever, it's always off of the evocation rank. So
yeah, that's how much ether you can draw in.
Shove
right?
in, yeah. That's how conductive you are. How much ether you can push through yourself is basically what evocation represents. So,
and so the other half of that then is you've just explained, the mechanic of the spell crafting. What's used to determine how often or how much spellcrafting you can do?
Well, that's all built off of it's a organic, systematic thing. In other words, when you roll your dice, if you have any ones that appear at the time that you're casting a spell, it counts as a point of exhaustion. It can't be removed unless it's something like the enchantment or something else along those lines, right? You have to have something that compensates, but you take it anyway. So if you don't have anything, and you roll 3 dice and get 2 ones, you have 2 points of exhaustion. That goes directly against your tolerance stat, and whatever your tolerance is, if you have 5, that means you got 3 left until you rest. And then you keep going until you go into the negatives. So what happens
burn
is...
up your body.
Yeah, you basically wear yourself out, but it's an organic scale. So you start in the positive, and so if it's 5 tolerance, you have up until -5 before you can't cast anymore. You just get stuck. You have to stop and rest. You're just unable to push any more magic through your system.
And that happened 2 sessions ago.
Yeah, as a matter of fact.
To Danny, I drew in. I had I'd had an advantage that let me basically overload, like draw in more than I am supposed to naturally, and then I failed. And so I drew in all this ether, right? That's the force that makes up everything. I drew in all this ether, and then I did not succeed on my rolls. And in trying to do a simple thing, but trying to do it really well, I ended up failing, and I took on like all that
massive amount of exhaustion. Yeah. And then
I couldn't put it into a spell or whatever, and so then it like collapsed on me, and I took physical damage. So
emotional damage.
I took emotional damage for sure, but yeah, I took physical damage because that's what happens when you fail. You have more botches than successes. When you're doing a spell, it causes a rupture, which is you're basically attacking yourself then. And those of us who cast spells tend to not be the most physically resilient. So I basically like trying to imagine what it looked like in the game world. Somebody, Barnaby, right, was injured, and I was trying to heal him, and I was like, "Here, let me help." Basically, I tried to heal him and knocked my own self unconscious. And and that can only be healed,
through rest and time.
And it has to be healed naturally. You can't just jab yourself with a syringe and get better.
Yeah.
So, just to be clear, the what I heard you guys say is that in Shadows, magic goes until the person runs out of fuel by too many failures. So there's no mana system. There's just you keep evocating until you fail too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly
if you're successful, you can keep going. If you are, and so what, based on how high your tolerance is, which is a calculated stat. It's a combination of other stats. So you have to, put effort into your intelligence and your empathy and all that. Like, based on how high your tolerance is how many fails you can have, right?
Yep.
But then based on how high your evocation is kind of your baseline for throwing dice. So if you have an evocation of 2, you have 2 dice to throw. That means the most you can get is 2 failures, right? It's small stakes. As you ramp up that evocation, you have an evocation of 6, you can throw 6 dice, which means you could have 6 successes or you could have 6 failures. And but you're dealing with bigger stuff.
Yep.
You don't have a match in your hand, you've got a flamethrower now. And the potential for damage or success is a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
But if you keep being successful, you could just keep going. You could be throwing fireballs all day.
Yeah, and that's kind of the natural point I want to make with that. That leads it right into it. The system tries to embody natural consequence. It doesn't try to penalize the player through mechanical means. It just says, look, this is what happens. You can play with this when you get the ability, but just realize you're screwing around with really powerful stuff. It can blow up in your face, literally.
So I want to ask a kind of a deeper dive question then. In some of our archetypes, we have a concept of SFR, which sounds like mana to me.
More or less.
Can you describe what SFR is and how it fits into this evocation, enchantment, and alchemy system?
Well, it's kind of a mouthful. It does not incorporate itself to magic whatsoever. So here's the payoff. This is the reason why you would know the difference between those who are of the
Arcanist
supernatural
versus someone else.
Right, and the Arcanist gets the ability to do whatever the hell they want with the highest level of risk possible. They basically go like, yeah, I could shape an entire castle out of, diamonds if I wanted to. Screw that up, and I'm probably going to become literally a smear on the concrete. All right, so he screws up. He basically gets blown to pieces. The supernatural, on the other hand, have a very myopic degree of change and ability through powers, but they have to also, the other part that compensates for it is that they have to expend a certain amount of points. This is the SFR part, which is their spiritual force rating. It's kind of a mouthful, but the SFR that they have is kind of their battery. It's how much they can discharge to accomplish whatever powers they're shooting off. And these could be offensive, defensive. They could be healing or detect worthy. The powers are variable and wide. It depends on what kind of archetype you're playing, what sort of powers they might have available to them, if it's holy, unholy, if you get a chance to make up your own, that kind of stuff. But SFR is a point count where you just got a bank of power that you can expend over time to cause supernatural things to happen. And the benefit is that you can't screw it up. It just automatically happens. You're like, okay, I've got this power of this weird, I don't know, a balefire is one of the things, where it's this green ball of necrotic flame. You could just launch that. You don't have to sit there and concentrate and go okay, I'm casting balefire. Now I have to make sure I don't blow up. You just go, all right, spending the points, like that. It just gives you the ability to more or less cheese it. But you don't have the expansive capacity to create all kinds of other things besides that. You just have access to that ability and the cost when you're safe. You don't blow yourself up in the process. You just run out of juice.
So we'll see Bill do that with Malcolm, right? His vampires use SFR, and he'll use his cloak. He'll go super speed. He can levitate. He can pull out his cool lantern. All of those different things use up different points of SFR.
Checking possible.
And as a vampire, for him to recharge, he has to drink
Yes.
Blood.
Yeah.
Blood.
He's got the thirst.
Yep.
Got the thirst. He's down with the sickness.
So that's what he's got.
Spooky
That's how
lantern.
he replenishes his SFR.
Yep.
Danny has no battery.
Yep.
He goes until he wears himself out and goes and needs a nap. That's
He just
like
takes.
a toddler.
Yeah.
He just runs full speed until he needs Yeah.
And the worst thing that can
So-
possibly happen to him is either death or mutation. You know, he can suffer some seriously nasty side effects if he's not careful.
So what I'm hearing you say then is that in Shadows, if you're a player who doesn't want to create their own custom and doesn't feel particularly creative, choosing an archetype that has preset, skills or abilities that use SFR might be a good choice for them. And it
Yeah.
is analogous to our to a D&D like wizard, where it's like, hey, you've got this allotment of skill or points you can use, and you can do this enough. You can use it for these spells or these effects. It's a more wide ranging because it affects multiple different archetypes and it's all one system, but it's analogous. Is that close?
There's it's mildly analogous. It's actually a lot closer to a sorcerer class in that sense because of the limitation on what is possible. You know what I mean? The difference is that instead of splitting it between spell groups, we're splitting it between archetypes. That's about the major change. But powers themselves are usually honka-chunka powerful in and of their own right, and because they run out, it's like it depends on how you use it. Eventually, what I want to do is get something involved that's going to be more like Marvel Mutants. I want to have it's like where you get one or two things that are just kind of always on. But I want to see exactly how that would work out. For now, the Powers and the Arcanist are great juxtaposed archetypal differences, because you can really see how the playstyles would matter. They have their advantages and disadvantages, but they're fun to play. It's an organic thing. You can choose what
Yeah,
you want to do
I
based
love
on
it.
that. Yeah. It's like,
I mean, it's been so we talked a little bit about like the preset spells, the common spells, right? One of
yeah.
the things I love is the improvised casting.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you're a vampire, you have the ability to like pop out your fangs, pop out your claws, you can levitate. Depending on what your bloodline is, you get access to another set of powers. But like you can't just say like I'm gonna grow wings and shoot laser beams out of my eyes or whatever. Like you can't do that. You're kind of locked into a more narrow thing. You can make a custom and justify all that. That's fine. For Danny, like one of the things that you get is improvised spell casting, right? So yeah, like you were saying, describe the effect. Even if it's a minor tweak, which could be seen if people are familiar with meta magic, right? In sorcerer meta magic
Right.
from D&D,
Yep.
where you could say like, okay, I have this spell, let's say fireball. It's my classic go-to, fireball. I
Yeah.
want it to be 2 fireballs. I'm gonna split it in 2. So that then D could say, okay, that's gonna be a higher target number
Right.
because it's a little more complex. Whereas I want this one to, be a homing fireball. So instead of me launching it straight out, it's gonna like go around the corner and take that guy out. Like, okay, great. Here, that's a higher threshold, right? So there's like little levers that you can pull and tweak to make that work. And it's really up to the creativity of the player and their ability to work within the system, within the context.
Yeah. Well, and that's the beauty of it, right? Because I can decide. It's one of those things. It's like, let's say you wanted to cast 3 fireballs. I'd be cool. In my case, I'd be like, let's say 1+1 threshold for each fireball.
Right.
It would just make the most sense, because I'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to divvy up your targets, just bump the threshold up. It's like if it's a singular spell like that, you just go like, okay, each person or each target's a second threshold. And then if you were like, but I also want to make them homing so that they hit, so you're trying to do more damage, I'm like, swizzle, I'll make that a 9 instead of an 8. So it's like,
Yeah.
it just ramps up the
And that
difficulty.
ramps up dramatically.
Yeah.
Right? Instead of having an 8 with 1 threshold, so you have to hit 8 or higher on the dice once. Then
Just
you're
to be
saying,
successful.
okay, now it's a
Yeah.
threshold of 4. So you've got to have 4 successes
Yeah.
for it to work. Okay, now the target is a 9. So now you've got to roll and hit at least a 9 4 times for it to be successful. Like, that's a whole different level of spell.
Right, and this is really important. That actually does something extremely important. When you have a minimum threshold, This means that it controls the amount of damage output too. Damage is based per success. This is where things get interesting. The system is self-helping here. So if you go threshold 4, and I want 4 fireballs in that exact same example, I get those 4 successes, or 4, that would count as the single success necessary to do it, which means that each person gets hit, for sure, because it's homing, right? But it's only worth 1 success worth of damage power. That's it.
Right.
Instead
If
of
you divvied
being
it up,
one... Right, yeah, that'd be kind of the way it would function. You could get more than that, because if you got 5 successes, that'd be two worth of your spell power in that. Because it's 2 successes technically. In order to meet that threshold, that's the reason why we call it that. In order to meet the threshold, you have to make this many successes. And so the higher the threshold, the lower the output, because it's a lot tougher. So it naturally balances itself. I don't have to do anything. I was like, okay, cool. You want to send 60,000 fireballs? Well, 60,000 threshold. Go for it. Like,
Start rolling.
yeah.
Okay, but you're talking damage.
Yeah.
Here's one thing that I absolutely love about spellcasting in Shadows. A fireball in D&D does 66 damage. That's it. You could be a brand new wizard who just hit that threshold. You could be the greatest archmage of all time. A fireball does 66.
Yep.
In Shadows, the more practiced you become, the higher you become. That directly impacts how much damage your spell can do.
Yep.
And so, if you're putting in the time and the effort to get stronger and better at evocation, when your spell hits, the brand new person who just learned how to do it might do 10 damage. You might do 25 because it's
You could rack that up. Yeah, like the single fireball scenario, right? Because it's an area of effect. So anybody that gets caught in it has to suffer that damage, right? You just determine how wide the explosion's really going to be. And again, if somebody's like, I really want this to be a huge range, right? So if you're going like, well, 30 feet sounds reasonable. Then they're like, well, I want an 80-foot explosion radius. And it's like, okay, let's make that the 4 threshold just like the other one and go for it. That will probably get your mass explosion, but you're just going to be all the way whittled down in the amount of damage output. But if you don't dingle with that, if you got 4 or 5 successes and your spell power sitting at 11, that's 44 frickin' damage. Just like you're slagging cars.
Yeah, for context, Danny has 20 health.
Yeah.
So my spell power is 10, and I have 20 health. So if I shot at myself twice, like I can eat 2 fireballs, and then I'm done.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that because I had to put effort into evocation to raise that up. I had to improve my intelligence. I had to improve, my will, like all of those things, and I'm rewarded for it. On the other hand, so that part I really enjoy because that hasn't been the case in another system.
Spice tolerance.
Fireball is always a fireball.
Mm-hmm.
Melf's, what is it? The magic missile always does 1d4 damage.
1d4 plus 1 per missile, yeah.
Like that's just right. Like it's it.
Yeah.
So, but it's a flat number, so you're not gonna like hit and then only do like 1 damage because you rolled poorly on the dice. You're always gonna do damage, and it's always gonna be at least your minimum damage, which is a higher number. And if you're more successful, you will be more successful.
Yep, and like I said, that threshold is a great way to create choke on things that would normally cause an out of balance problem. Because the higher the threshold, you reduce the amount of power output. You just do. Because you're trying to do a lot more.
That's the balancing factor.
Yeah, it balances itself, but it's so supple. Like it just goes. I don't have to explain that more than a paragraph, maybe. Like it's just.
Well, it's been nice to use. Like
yeah. It's nice for GMs too, because it means that the GM has an active tool that says that if they I'm sorry. I was looking in my head. It's like if they have a tool that's a player, they can wind them up in the right ways so that they're not like driving everybody crazy. It's like the whole thing about it is very much yes and or yes also. Like it's like you can just add this. It's like or
Yeah.
it's yes plus something else. Not nope, can't do it. Sorry, you're done. Like it's far more nuanced.
I would love to see some of Ivar's shenanigans under this system.
Right.
Because some of the so Ivar was a character in our earlier campaign, and he willed things into existence.
Within a certain
He was
range.
Scarlet
It was limited
Witch.
to he was at the center
Yeah,
of his own holographic magical simulation that he could just dink around with.
yeah, he was the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah,
Like,
he really was.
He would alter reality in his favor, and I remember very distinctly one of the spells that he did was he basically wanted to create like the World of Warcraft like paladin bubble. Like he
Mhm.
wanted to create like a spiritual divine shield around all of us that would absorb X
He
amount
saved
of
us so many
damage.
times.
Right, yeah. It would absorb X amount of damage. And it was like okay, you have your target number is 9 and you have to get 6 successes or whatever. And he was like, all right. And he did.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay.
Yeah, he did it.
I guess all of us have like a 50 damage magical shield around us going to this next fight, which is pretty much the only way we survived that fight.
Yeah.
And that's not a spell he looked up in the book. Like he just went, hey, I had an idea.
Ivar just makes it up. He's evocating.
Yeah.
Like crazy.
Yeah, he was loosey goosey, dude, and he only screwed up so hard once that it caused a reality fissure, and that was within the first few sessions. After that, somehow or another, it just didn't ever happen again. I kept waiting for it, but it never did.
I mean, he is.
Oh, I'm
his
wrong. It
Dyrel
happened-
was the last one, right?
Yeah, for like the end of the
Yeah.
game, but there was actually one
Campaign.
moment right before that I almost forgot that he did do the same thing. He botched, had no luck. Like if it was out there on the docks when you guys were fighting with Jekyll and all the other vampires, and that
Yeah.
caused all kinds of problems. He was just like, "Well, gotta go," like that. Just y'all left.
Yeah. It was, but like that's an example of the high highs and the low lows.
It can mean a lot. I mean, you guys were in such cool moments, like fighting on Phobos with Adrian Copperfield, just lobbing huge ass stones in your direction, dealing with huge monsters. Like it was shonen manga all over the place, but it was the good kind that even adults would enjoy. It's like that's awesome. But I guess that's kind of the point. Is that you should feel awesome. Even if things like,
Right.
when stupid crap happens, it's gonna happen. Every game's got that. Like, the dice just betray you, and you're like, alright, I'm gonna go out here, it's gonna flirt like that and fall on something sharp, your character dies, you're like, well, crap. Like...
Bill on Sunday, right? He was rolling ones left and right.
Oh, Jesus, yeah, he was just in a funk. I couldn't figure out what was going on. He
yeah,
was just-
his digital dice were stuck on one.
Dude, they were so bad. They were really bad, nasty. I think it's because they gave him such a huge, resounding, here he is, and he just kicks the crap out of a whole bunch of gang members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Danny's first fight in Central Park,
Mm-hmm.
right? I had this like 15 fire emoji. This 15-year-old kid, he's like never really done more than like slowly pull a deck of cards slightly closer to him or push it slightly further away, right? He's like experimenting with like real basic low stakes stuff. They get attacked. He tries to do a spell, it fizzles.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, I'm gonna, try my hardest. And he went like full Gohan, like, and
Melted
and,
a
like,
guy's face off.
triple critted on, dart spell or whatever.
It was a
right?
fire dart,
explosion,
yeah.
explosion, and like just nuked some guy out of orbit, and then he's traumatized from that because he had never hurt anybody with a spell before.
Yep.
He pretends it didn't even happen. Like,
He's in
No.
active PTSD denial.
well, just has blocked. There's a sorry cut for time from his memory. But that's like even like a young person who gets lucky with the exploding dice, right? Made a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, and there is something I was thinking about. I think it might make it just a general milestone or something along those lines, but I wanted to do this thing where, because I realized there was something in 3rd edition D&D that doesn't exist in 5th, and I was like, I would love for this to come back, and I was like, oh my god, it could. And I was like, what if I took and made it possible for, a character who's extremely skilled. Like, I'm thinking, like, for humans to start with, I might bring it across for other things, but for, like, humans, professionals, and the like, they could probably, like I said, or it could be a general milestone, depending on how we feel about it. But you pick a basic check, and you widen the crit range, meaning that when you're doing this particular thing, rolling a 9 or a 10 gives you, like, that explosion effect. So you explode at a 9 or 10. And I would never push it back further than 8. But I want the option to be there for one specific thing to be like S tier skill. Like, this is the skill this guy does. This is what he's about. And he's like, boot, like 8 explode, 9 explode. Like, he just goes, like, so you can.
Yeah.
That would just be fun to have.
4th edition had some feats like that where it was like, when doing XYZ, you can crit on a 19 or 20. They also had the inverse where they said, like, all ones count as a 2.
Right.
Right?
To do the same
So
thing. Yeah.
You could still...
You
maybe
unbotch
as
it. Yeah.
Botch. It still might be too low
Right.
for it to be successful, but it's not an automatic failure. Yeah, something like that. I mean, that's what I like about the flexibility of this game with milestones, with advantages. Someone could be extremely well versed in a certain skill or something,
Right.
and maybe our skills have ranks, right? So maybe it's when you reach rank 10.
Rank 10 have so many different
skill.
major milestones under your belt already. You
And
could
it
go
could
for
be,
this one.
skill mastery.
Yeah, it's which would mean that your combat skills could go up too in exactly the same way. Maybe you're just crazy with a handgun. You know what I mean?
Barrick, right? Like that.
Yeah, like that would
was-
easily explain it. Plus his the whole gun kata thing. Because of the way that we interpreted it at first. Because like that, it goes to show you exactly how loosey goosey I am with a GM without actually going like, oh, don't worry, you'll still have threats. It's fine. It's like being able to just slap in like, all right, here you go. We're gonna take your hand skill rank or your handgun skill rank with your total gun kata and just go stack, and then you're like,
Yeah,
all right,
roll
no
it
problem.
like I just roll a d10 plus 25 or whatever, and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, what?
yeah,
How is that possible?
it was
Yeah,
great.
you never missed.
He pretty much didn't know. But
Except
it was kind
that one time that well, no, yeah, it's true. I never missed. I even shot you.
of... yeah.
Like, trying to not hit you, I still even hit you. Yeah. Yeah, I think stuff like that, that's and maybe there's, room for we talked about this before with if you're doing the same spell, a common spell, over and over, maybe you get familiarity with it, and it ends up lowering the target number by 1.
Right. Yes.
Right.
The
So
lowering target
if
number
you're
by
always,
1, same idea. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're always casting Dart, if that's your go-to spell, or Snatch or whatever, Danny always does Snatch. If you're always doing that spell over and over, then that has become so familiar to you that it's literally easier for you to do. Because the spells don't ever get easier.
Right.
You just have more tolerance for failure. Oh, you're sharing Inky's. Oh, jeez.
He can't see it on stream.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Well,
I
I like
see it on
the
stream.
I like the little Discord.
No? Not on stream? Okay.
uh,
Watch. That's funny.
That's actually the anatomy is on point, absolutely on point. That's a really good silhouette.
Yeah.
Very nice. Mickey. I
On
forgot which
point.
screen I was looking at. I was like, you're gonna put that live. That's funny. Discord wouldn't let me send it. Well, you censored it appropriately with the Discord logo.
Right. It seems like kind of a snappy quip against Discord itself,
I think so.
It does.
which is elegant.
Yeah. So I think the magic system is it's interesting and it's flexible. But again, if you don't feel like being creative all the time, there are times when our game night, my brain is burnt out, and I'm like, I'm just gonna stick to Dart.
Phew.
Like,
Phew.
I can look up the common spell. Okay, target 7, threshold 1, no problem. I'll stick to that tonight. And then there are times when the situation is really unique, and I you have to be more
Portal this out of
creative.
the little pocket dimension.
Yeah. Or like,
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
was
I've done
cool.
it. I summoned McDonald's.
Yeah. The McDonald's, like, that's the other thing, too, is that I've got one other thing that I wanted to do, because there's a lot of stuff, like, how would you explain, being able to grow wings? Kind of like, I want to grow wings and shoot lasers out of my eyes and stuff like that. It's like, well, an Arcanist could do it. But it's like, but what happens whenever you lose concentration in wings? And, the laser eye thing is temporary. You're basically leaving that on as the cast spell, because it just goes on, and then you let it go, right? It's not a concentration, otherwise it's just Cyclops all the time. I'm going to read the paper. Like,
Gonna be
so,
flying through the air. You lose concentration. Bye wings.
yeah, right. Well, so it's like, are you creating, it's like it could be done in several different ways, but I was like, I want to basically use ether to, like, create something I'm calling right now until I can come up with something better. It's basically going to be something called pseudomatter, where it is physical as long as you're actively using the ether to keep it physical. The second that happens, it just goes back to vapor again. So it just evaporates back into the atmosphere all by itself.
Oh, I like that.
Right.
Like an ectoplasm, sort of.
More or less, yeah. So,
but
if
less
you were
gross.
to... Right, so if you were to basically go like, oh, cool, I want to make myself really huge as an Arcanist, it's like, sure, you can do that. And then you create the spell where you get like 20 feet tall, but when you stop, you just go, it all just basically evaporates and you slowly drift back down to the ground, because the physical matter that you had created to, create that gigantic form is no longer held together. And it would just follow all the same rules, because any damage would be reflected to you. You're creating that body and therefore indelibly connected to it. But it helps.
I like that.
Yeah, it helps to basically go, okay, how do these kinds of weird physical things happen? How can they be explained? And I was like, some kind of pseudomatter. It's basically temporary physical matter that is holding shape because you're the Arcanist doing it. And as long as you have, and you could do things where, you have artifacts that are permanent that can do that and just kind of hold it for a while, or charms that give you like a certain amount of time. You just hold the charm out and you transform, and it's one of those things where it's like the pseudomatter does something where you're not, even if you were to shrink, right? Because going bigger is one thing, but what happens when you try to shrink yourself down? It's like you're kind of slipping into a funny, like, dimension in a sense. You're not staying in the proper physical dimension. That dimension is warping, so it's not like you're changing your physical body. You're just stepping back out of phase while the pseudomatter takes place, and you go around, and then when you evaporate back into it, it's like you take back your natural form. So, like, the pseudomatter and those dimensional concepts help me conceive how you can do these effects without having to be like, it almost gives it a little bit of science attached to it as well. Like, how can you be a mouse when you're a mage? How do you do that whirl thing and you just smoke down into whatever?
Right.
And it's just sort of like, well, you're using pseudomatter to create the new body, and then you're sort of going out of physical phase, which allows you to inhabit your consciousness into other forms. You're not disappearing and reappearing as people know it.
Giving me some ideas for Danny.
Right. Yeah. But because of the high level of resonance other mages would be able to see, it's like, that's not real.
Oh yeah.
It's like, that's
Right,
not real
you'd
at
be
all.
giving off vibes.
That's, yeah, you'd look at it and be like, "Bwonk," like a big glowing ball of ether magic that it's like, Yeah, that's not real.
No, that's cool stuff. I mean, I think like we put a lot of emphasis on the combat elements of it, but there are some cool spells like the fuse spell, the Band-Aid fix. I like that healing spell, right? But it
Yeah.
has a twist to it.
Mm-hmm.
Because the sovereignty of the soul.
Yes.
You can't heal an unwilling person.
Right. There's just, you can cause damage because, well, you can cause damage. It's something, but you can't go in there with magic and do damage in the same way. If you try to use magic directly on a target and say, I want that person to grow a third arm and I want it to be painful, good luck. The shape of the soul literally holds itself, and it is a power far above and beyond whatever any arcanist could ever understand. And so when you try to warp that, it's not going to just say, okay. It is a natural defense. Everybody's naturally defensive when it comes to magic trying to alter the structure, which again goes right alongside with the whole pseudo-matter thing. You're not altering your physical body, not really. You're just stepping back and letting something kind of overtake for a little bit.
Yeah. So the way it would work is for a spell like the Band-Aid fix, where you try to heal someone, they could resist it, and it jacks the tolerance, or it jacks the threshold and the target number super high. So if someone is, and I like that it's in the book. Someone is unconscious.
Good
they
lord.
can't consent.
Shady.
Oh shit.
Bruh! I don't...
You
At this
good?
point, I'm going to have to, buy you a cake or something. Just kidding.
He's
Aw.
paying out of grief.
Yeah. Poor
I
guy.
heard.
Yeah. It is not good. They should give it back to him.
I would go on a campaign for him. He's
Right?
a good guy.
So would I.
We'll do a hot tub stream unless they give it back.
Unless they give it back.
Yeah. See how... yeah. Wow,
You're
that
saying
just...
Scott, you want
I just...
CD in a banana hammock.
Oh, God.
Oh wow, I just totally roadblocked him.
Yeah.
I don't ever want to know what it feels like to wear butt floss, man. What the hell were we talking about? I actually lost it. Ken.
This is gonna make for good audio later.
Starts giggling. Yeah.
So healing, you can't. An unconscious person cannot consent.
Right.
That's what we were talking about. That's in our book. It's true. An unconscious person cannot consent. Have to consent
Thank
to
you, Inky.
being healed. So,
Yeah.
you're trying. If someone is on the brink of death, you're trying to use magic to heal them. Like there's gonna be resistance. Maybe their soul's not interested in being healed.
Yeah, well, that is actually that's nature going against what you're trying to do. It's the paradox of what you're attempting, right? You're trying to do something occult, even if it's for the person's benefit. You're still trying to take something that nature's already got covered, and it's like these are the rules, and you're trying to go like, well, I want to make my own, and it's going to be like, no, like it's just It basically goes both ways. Yeah, it stops you from having somebody like directly fill your lungs with water when you don't want them to and stuff like that, or immediately take that's the difference between also a psychic and a magic user. If a psychic wants to use mind control, they don't have that limitation. They get to go right in there because it is a naturally occurring thing as opposed to a skill thing that you're just trying to bend out of whack. And for a magician to do what they're doing and try to bend somebody's will through magic compulsion, it's a totally different ball of wax. They don't have the same access in the same way.
Yeah, and that's why when Danny wants to do mind control, he just summons McDonald's for everybody and makes them like him. Not
You guys
sponsored by
never had
McDonald's.
MSG before.
Right. Well, and that again, that's secondarily, again, this is where it gets interesting. So mechanically, like I said, there is a huge, like, perfect, like, it's so sublime. It just makes me so happy to talk about it. Let's say you did make Love Potion number 9, right? You're trying to create an actual Love Potion in Shadows. It is considered to be an enchantment unless you want it to be an artifact. Maybe the bottle, like if it's an artifact, you say, pour a liquid into this bottle and it will compel someone to fall in love with the first person they see, right? That is the whole spell for the original Love Potion anyway. So if you were to do that, I would be like, okay, so 10 is, for any alchemical project, 10 is the baseline. And then I would say, you also have the Sovereignty of the Soul to deal with, which tacks on another 5. So you have 15 anyway. And it's like, plus, I'm going like, this is really messed up on moral levels to, like, just force somebody to fall in love with you, or them, or anyone else in such a way. Like, it's just to completely bog somebody's brain out, it's going to be really high. So I would say, like, make it 18. So you'd need 18 successes to pull this off, to make this artifact, right? The kicker is, because of the way Threshold works, if you make 18, that counts as the single success to make it work. So, to resist that effect, even though it is a massively complex alchemical artifact, somebody with a will of 1 can still drink it and roll against it with 1 die, with the chance of going against a single 1 success requirement, right? But if you were to get like 19, 20, or 21, like if you got a 21 successes on that roll, that would mean you had the 18, which is counted as 1, and then the 3 others. So you'd have 4, which would mean that would be one hell of a powerful potion all by itself. That's how that stuff just balances immediately. It makes it into, okay, whoa.
And the extra special balancing is that the GM can say, no.
Yeah. And the GM is so like, that's not how that works. You're not going to run around with a
works.
Yeah. You're not going to run around with a brothel of hopelessly obsessed love addicts. Although you might make that a villain. That'd be a good one, because let me tell you, having somebody fanatically fall in love with you and then you use them for any purpose because they don't care, it's for you, it makes you happy, they'll just go do it. It's like that kind of blind obsession it's basically you'd be making thralls. And that would be evil. That'd be evil as shit. It'd be hard not to get power drunk off something like that.
That's true.
Yeah. But they would still get that resistance. They would still roll the will against the magical ability, and like I said, you'd have to push it way up above that in order to get lots of success requirements, to push that threshold for somebody else to go against it. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like, whatever the hell Merlin did, or whatever the hell the Fae did in order to make Excalibur, that's basically like a evil. Sorry, I couldn't help it, Mermaid Man.
Yep.
The way that they did Excalibur, it's like, okay, well, the person who's trying to pull it out of the stone has to meet a very specific criterion, right? But the magic wasn't necessarily just, okay, you got it, cool. Like, it still resisted him at times. Like, there was points where he had to deal with this weapon kind of having a will of its own. And so when you have sort of semi-sentient type artifacts like that, that's what you'd roll on. They would have a threshold of whatever the hell it was, and it was probably a 5 or 6, if I'm being honest. Like, Excalibur is, like, ridiculous. So it would have its own will of 6, somewhere in there, which is stupid. So it's like, it can actively resist attempts to dispel it. Stuff like that. It's like, whoa. You get into that realm, and it gets really cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is super interesting. I think our listeners have learned a lot about the magic system and what makes it unique in Shadows.
Yeah, well, and also fun, because talk about having your own flavor thrown into it, right? No mage is going to be like another. And that's also what makes mages very dangerous in game, because if you make an arcanist the villain, they will have the same exact kinds of crazy creative bullshit to throw at you. you know,
Yeah.
it becomes
thinking a later
really
episode,
dangerous.
We should get into the nitty-gritty of how you create a spell, because the forces of the Shadows universe and how you mold it make a difference.
Yeah.
And I know that you've put a lot of work into. I think there's five. There's 5 different elements of the universe that you use to make spells happen.
Well, I mean, like, I'm just taking off of base of things that I understand to be true in reality, which is the, you know, all typical elements, the earth, air, fire, water, and space, or void, as you call it.
Yeah, I said 5.
Yeah,
I was right.
Good
Yeah.
job.
I always
correct.
think of it as a 5-star, like, 5-point star kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a
I designed 5 runes for the magic page in our core rulebook, so we'll
Yeah.
get 5. Yeah.
Yep. All the
Five
main 4
magic.
elements and void. Void being
Yeah.
space. And which is weird because it's kind of a misnomer. Space is not empty. It's full of everything. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you know, but void just means that you're creating a gap. And it's very powerful stuff because, you know, void is kind of the it is the fabric is sewn into everything you do. You know, every spell has a part of void in it, and there's no way to tell exactly how much. You know what I mean? It could be only 1% of the spell, perhaps, but that 1% goes deep.
Yeah, you got to get down with the thickness.
Yeah.
Rain is pounding against the window here.
That happens to me all the time here. I just ignore it because, yeah,
I love it.
yeah. I do. I whenever I'm going to bed, especially, I like it. But
I'll say this: I'm okay with the rain. I can't handle the wind. I do not like the wind.
don't like having your jowls flapping once you're walking out the door. But I'm like, hey, kids, like that.
It's
Just
the, it's the more like hearing stuff crash and fall over.
yeah. That's never fun.
Yeah, so I think that our quick start guide is really close to
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got to
being
get those
released,
pre-gens pushed through.
and magic is described pretty well in a limited fashion, but pretty well in that system, and how folks can utilize it. I think we've included like 15 or 20 common spells that
Yeah.
range from like utility spells to combat spells, and put in all the information on how to improvise. So, if folks are interested in picking up the quick start guide and testing it out, there's the basic stuff that's in there. Yeah, shadowsrpt.com. The basic stuff is in there for sure.
Yeah.
And then, most Thursdays we're here playing. So
Yeah.
you can see it live and unfolding.
Self promo. Yeah, we're plugging.
You got to plug.
Yeah. Well, it's important to do this because, man, it's gonna. It's just I had the whole Fates from Hercules. It's like indoor plumbing. It's gonna be big. Like I just kind of feel that with this, it's gonna be big. Somehow or another. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I
that's why you have to
feel
tell
this
people
way.
about it, because if people don't know about it, then they're not going to look at it. So
We got
Yeah.
character sheets all finished.
Yeah, it's so badass. And
Yeah, I mean,
we even have.
I've got them all here.
Yep, I'm waiting. I'm loving to pick that up. That'll be next week too. Oh, and that does remind me. I should probably announce that I'm going to be doing a few more streams next week, because it's my usual streaming week, and then I'm going to be gone for a while, from like the 16th through the 23rd. I will.
Meditation.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here. I'm going to be hanging out with friends and doing the friend thing with zero responsibility. It's going to be nice.
And you're going to test out the character sheet.
Yes, actually, that's part of the fun. I'm going to be doing some grade A closed beta testing with a
Yay.
friend of mine who runs D&D exclusively right now because he's been with it for so long. But he's been,
Dark side.
well, he's played Shadows a couple of times before, and he's just kind of like, he just wanted something a little more with a little more substance, and it's been years. So I'm like, okay, substance is here. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And he's been playing since he's 8, and he's only a few years younger than I am, so he's been playing 25 plus years. Like, he's just been nuts. So it's like, to get any feedback that he has on this as this experiment rolls through, will be critical.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It'll be fun to do. And so, yeah, I'll be out for a good 7 days, somewhere in there. But I'll be back after that. I should still be posting up videos and chops and all that other stuff. Thanks to
Oh yeah, the site will continue to run.
dear Ken here.
We just have to
Oh.
front load it. That's why he's going to be streaming a lot.
But if anybody who's watching or listening would like to sign up, got a mailing list. It won't be spamming anything like that. But if you go to the Shadows RPG site, you can click and fill out your name, and then when stuff releases, you'll be the first to know. We're planning, I think, on having a Patreon only area of the site where we can allow for like full character creation and all that. That'll give you all the full rules to make your own characters. So that that's coming in the near future.
Yep.
And the next big project I think that we're tackling in the book is the link. So
Yeah.
looking
I think
at the interwebs.
yeah, the only two major sections left right now, because like mechanically we've got all the major stuff
Yeah.
in place. It's just a matter of formatting and editing that, and then we have the second set or the second section, which is just world building, lore, etc., etc. And then of course the GM's section, which is technically based, but it'll have like baseline, probably a lot of examples and a lot of different ways to handle situations as they get
Yeah.
weird, especially things like, hey, use threshold. It's handy.
Right,
it
right.
helps.
Cool
Like
things of like how to build your own enemies.
Right.
Like
stat blocks and monsters and
Yeah.
enemies, stuff like that. The High Threat
my.
Codex. Yeah, some of the stuff from the High Threat Codex will be in there. Yeah, so all of that.
doing just the one book, not a monster manual and a dungeon master's guide. And,
No need. Yeah, it's going to be one thing, and then it's going to be supplementary, and then when it's all in that position, gosh, I think we'll actually have something to throw up online, and hell, even look at things like Kickstarter or anything else with a product standing beside it. I doubt people would be disappointed. You know what I mean? They'd get something in there, and we could take the feedback and really work with it. But that's
I think by the end of this year we might have something really solid.
Our
imprinted.
3-year anniversary is coming up in 2
Yeah.
months.
yep.
And so I'm pushing hard to have a quick start ready in May so that we can have that part done. May
Yep.
2023, have that ready and start getting other people outside of us playing and testing it out and getting that feedback. And then hopefully by the end of this year, by the end of 2023, we'll have at least a print on demand, something that people can
Yeah.
get their hands on for the
Digital
full-
copies for sure. That'll save us some publishing points, and then Lord knows it'll probably hit a physical book with getting the funding up. That's the only thing. Is just putting the funding up after all the testing and stuff is done. But I mean, shit, we're screaming along here. It's coming in, and never would have figured I would have been this far by now. But it's not without you guys, man. No way.
It takes a village.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really does for pretty
I'll
much
say
everything.
the art that we're getting in that book is fantastic.
I know, right?
It's like,
Yeah.
Did we already get our 10?
Not this month. I've got frickin' 13, 14 options that were shoved my way earlier today. I still have them all
Oh,
open as
okay.
tabs, and I'm going to go through them. Yeah.
I'd
So-
love to see some more environments in there.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of the focus. Is more about the world and the people involved and the scenarios and some of the like all of that stuff, and we're going to be able to make it work. I think actually what's funny about Shadows again is that because it is so flexible, we don't have to have like the pseudo-generic, I should say, the pseudo-generic cyberpunky style themes really open doors for us to be like, well, that actually fits. That's Shadows. All right, that one works too. We don't have to have specific commissions. Like,
You know, one that I really want to see that I think we need to have in like an actual written and part of our book is the marketplace. That is such an
the
important.
grand marketplace.
Yeah, like you've described.
really
it
had
4
an
or 5
effect on
times
you,
now,
huh?
and I've got an image in my head of how it should look.
Yeah.
But I would
That'll
love to see just
definitely
a
be in the
top-down
book.
view of it, and because that would be a great introduction to
I
just
think
the Fae
what
or
would
just
be-
the mystical part of
Yeah.
Shadows.
Because a
I
lot
would
of
love
what
to
we
see
talked
it as
about
like
is-
a black foreground silhouette with somebody staring off from the top part of that cliff face before you go down into the zigzag, but they're looking out into the distance at all of the cool night sky and some of the mountainous parts of the back end of the valley, and then the spiral marketplace with all of the amber lighting and all that stuff like that in between and that spiral formation, and just looking at it from that perspective. That's with the starlight and the weird celestial bodies. Like, that would be fabulous. As a commission's concerned, you're right. That would be amazing. That'd be
That could be
phenomenal.
part of, like, one of our goals when we have the when we put it up on Kickstarter.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
hey, we need enough money so that we can print some of these and so that we can commission some good art.
Yeah, well, and for like the specifics, yeah, because like I said, most of it works pretty well for just period, which is great. But to have a few commissioned pieces that actually tell directly, go parallel with everything in the world itself would be phenomenal. The Grand Marketplace is a favorite of mine. I love that place.
Oh yeah, well it's been instrumental in 2 of our campaigns now. So
Yeah,
And Danny can't cast spells there, so.
yeah. You don't want the magical police showing up on your ass. Those handcuffs are not zip ties; they're worse. So, yeah, lots to do. There's a lot going on, and I've been absolutely overjoyed with the progress. I mean, there were times where I was like, "There's just no way this is ever going to work." I tried to think about doing it myself, and I was like, "There's just no effing way, no friggin' way." And then everything fell into place somehow, and damn near 3 years later, we've got almost a frickin' book. Like,
it's pretty incredible.
yeah, and doing the playing simultaneously alongside it. I mean, that's also awesome. Can't say we haven't tested it. Been running this shit the whole time.
We're on episode 29 of our current campaign.
I know it's a little nuts. The fact that we've gotten that far. Just what was the last? It seems like we got further faster this time around, because for 2 years we did the other one, and what was it, 50-something episodes? That seems a bit
It was
odd.
60 something, yeah.
Yeah, 60 episodes, so we're only 1/3 of the way there. I suppose that kind of makes sense. Yeah. It feels like we just got further faster. I mean, we're halfway through, though. So I guess, when the hell did we start? It was... duh, dude, 29 weeks ago. Give or take a couple.
Yeah.
That does make sense now. I'm sitting there going like, oh yeah. 29 episodes, 29 weeks. That's nearly entirely a year right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 52 weeks in a year, we've already eaten up most of it. It doesn't feel like that long. Damn. Craziness.
Time flies.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yep. And hopefully a lot of fun for a lot of other people, too, once this shit hits the ground. It'd be phenomenal.
All right.
Wow.
Well, I think we can wrap up this
Yeah.
episode.
I think so. I think we're good. Feeling pretty kosher. So, in that sense, obviously, next week, streaming, we got our plugs. Check us out on the websites. As we said, we're going to be around, and we ain't quitting until it's over. And even then, we're not quitting.
Oh.
So,
Yeah, one last bookkeeping. Next Thursday, D will not be streaming. We will not have Shadows on Thursday because he will be in Texas.
correct.
And
He needs
also
a
the
color.
Thursday afterwards.
A color.
Fuchsia.
That was weird. Did you pull that out of my head?
There you go. Inky, your color is fuchsia.
It's a lot better than my first choice, which was puce, which I used to laugh at as a kid because I thought it sounded like a dirty word.
Absolutely.
I'd be running around like, it's a color, puce! Like, I don't know why I thought it was a dirty word, but it's like, it's a stupid name. Well, yeah.
Fuchsia is a color featured in our CRB.
Is it? I
Yeah.
don't even know what that looks like. Yeah, puce. Exactly.
Bright pinkish purple.
Well, yeah, there you go.
It's right behind Ken's head in the
Oh, there you go. Okay. Bingo.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so shadowsrpg.com, getdangerous.net.
Mm-hmm. Which could actually stand in for hunter.net now that I think about it.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah, right. Anyway, before I go blathering on, everybody have a good night. We'll see you in the next one.
Take care.